Grand Theft Auto Frosted Winter. This has to be one of the most highly requested mods to cover over here on the channel, with tons of comments from quite a few of you over the course of my videography telling me to check it out, and honestly, I'm glad that I finally have. To put it short, GTA Frosted Winter is a total conversion mod for the classic that is GTA 3, that came out way back in 2010 and was re-released again in 2015, which either way at this point is like an eternity for GTA fans. Frosted Winter takes place in the winter of 2002 and puts us in the shoes of Joey Leone, the rightful heir to the Leone crime syndicate after his father, Salvatore, was unceremoniously killed by Claude back in GTA 3. And right off the bat, Joey gets set up for betrayal by none other than Tony Cipriani, who tries to take us out right at the beginning of the game to become the Don themselves. Surprisingly though, Joey survives the explosion unscathed, and rises from the ashes to take back his rightful place as the Don of the Leone family. By plotting our way through the criminal underworld, seeing a few familiar faces along the way, and eventually setting out for revenge against Tony. This game is completely unrelated to other total conversions out there, by the way, like Forelli Redemption, so don't expect any correlation between the two, as this mod was developed by Beginit of the Pastukas mod group, and was made in part with a couple of other developers. This infamous GTA mod has actually had a bit of a cult following ever since its release, with its fans praising the game for its cozy, snow-laden Liberty City, its expansive mission structure, and for better or worse, the mod's blatant roller coaster of a difficulty curve throughout the entire experience. And while it's a solid game for the most part, with it being a pretty long GTA mod overall, with my playthrough taking around 30 hours to complete, and that's including most of the side content in the game that's on offer, if I'm being honest, it's kind of mid.
What's that ominous glow in the distance?
Alright, put your pitchforks down. I know I have some explaining to do. Look, there is a lot of stuff that I love about the mod, like that cozy atmosphere I mentioned before, and a ton of other things as well that I really like too. But in other avenues, the mod can feel extremely dated in a lot of places, especially when it comes to the mission design and the story, which we're going to discuss later in the video. Since the mod has been around for quite a while, there's actually plenty of different versions that you can find and play through to get the full experience. My original plan was to install the OG version that's available over on ModDB, but when I was looking for some extra mods to add to the experience that were already out there for GTA 3, I noticed that there was a remastered version of the mod put out on libertycity.net by the developer Hamster978, or in their words, the ReHamstered edition. And while there wasn't a changelog provided for the mod entirely on what exactly was different, I still decided to go with this version instead of the original. Because from what I can tell, it adds some of those nice quality of life mods that I was looking for GTA 3, as well as includes some new apartments for Joey, just slight changes in missions that make a bit more sense, just to make the overall experience a bit better. But despite the remaster moniker, this version is mostly the same to the original version in terms of story, and I'll leave a link down in the description to decide which version that you want to play through. But if you're looking to wait a while, there's also a remaster of Frosted Winter being worked on by none other than the speedrunner English Ben, as their first outing with GTA modding. And they're looking to do a lot more than what's on offer with the current mod list made by Hamster. So if you stick around to the end of the video, we'll actually get a bit of an insight into eBen's project, as so far it looks extremely promising. Alright, at this point you probably want to know what I think of the mod, and why I'm thinking it's kind of mid, so let's dive into the good, the bad, and some of the downright ugly that this mod has to provide, and check out GTA Frosted Winter. Personally, I think the best thing this mod has going for it is the new, snowy, wintertime feel of Liberty City. The amount of snow that is covered on the streets, and hell, even baked into the textures for most buildings, makes the city have a completely new feel to it compared to the original GTA 3. And of course, with snow comes lower traction for vehicles, which makes you think a bit differently about how you get around half the time, making me bring out my inner GTA 4 driving skills.
Oh shit! This is crap! You can't drive!
Plus, with the remaster mod, you'll notice a bit more detail added to the different rides around town, like snow on the different windshields, and some of the pickups driving around sometimes have snow in the bed of their truck. Plus, all tires seen on the vehicles will have snow lodged in the treads from driving around, just adding even more of that snowy detail. And you'll also notice Joey's breath as you're out in the cold, as well as other NPCs' breath as you walk or even drive by them, really capturing the cold temperatures that have embraced the town. And since the mod takes place a year or so after Clot ran amok throughout Liberty City, we also get to see some of the lasting changes that have helped shape the city in the new century. With a ton of new map changes made throughout the experience that really make Liberty City feel like a whole new town to explore. From new alleyways that lead to new parking areas for residential parts, the new Donald Love Tower and Plaza that was built in Fort Staunton, to the extensive sewer system underneath Portland that can actually be used to safely get around that town. There are so many added areas to explore that make every second spent inside of the town feel completely new. There's also a few little additions made to Shoreside Vale that actually make it easier to get around that island, since the layout was pretty damn confusing to navigate in the original game. There's also this huge extension to Shoreside Vale just to the north of it, either by going through this tunnel or just heading over the mountains from the top, which leads you into the Ghost Town, which was this like hidden area that you could glitch to in GTA 3 originally, but now it's written into this story and used at a later part in the game. Or you can go freely explore it whenever you please. And with hidden package locations changed around the map and a ton of new collectibles to find as well, you may find yourself exploring this town all over again just to see what has changed, like myself. You might even stumble across a labyrinth or two, which is where I ended up discovering some of the mystery boxes around town, which is one of the new collectibles found in various hidden spots around town. Or hell, you can even summon a demon underneath Liberty City that actually counts towards 100%. In the original version of Frosted Winter, there was already a good amount of new areas to explore that were added to the map, including Liberty Island, complete with the Statue of Liberty, which I guess just kind of appeared out of nowhere. Some of these new areas will include new interiors. And with this remaster, Joey actually has 3 new apartments to take rest in on all 3 islands, complete with their own interiors that we can rest in and pick up some outfits from as we unlock them throughout the story. Plus, I really like the new weapons that were added to the mod, since GTA 3's weapon roster was pretty basic for the most part. The pistol being replaced with a Desert Eagle, the Uzi being replaced with the Tech 9, the AK being replaced with one of my personal favorites, the MP5, and even more on top of that, with most weapon sounds sounding like they come from the Max Payne series. And even the footstep sounds come from the same game. Max Payne 1 and 2 really nailed that winter New York vibe, and you can really feel the inspiration from its atmosphere throughout Frosted Winter. And hell, there's even a Max Payne reference in one of the collectible hunts that you can go through. And speaking of sound, another great aspect of Frosted Winter is its solid roster of early 2000s tracks, with each radio station in the game being completely revitalized with new tracks across the board, with some new stations being remixed to fit different genres more appropriately, as well as one new station to round everything out. With Head Radio seeing the biggest change out of the original stations, going from one of 2 pop music stations, now being delegated to playing some smooth jazz. And I am all for this with the winter vibes. And since that leaves only 1 station open for pop music, that's all been moved fittingly to Lips 106, with a great selection of underrated tracks that you might recall back in the day, and even a Gorillaz track which had me surprised. KJAW and Game FM also have a great selection of hits for their collective stations, as well as the rest of the different stations GTA 3 already had to offer, with MSX still being goated out of all of the stations in my opinion, as GTA 3 and drum and bass just go together like peanut butter and jelly. The side content, however, was abundant throughout the mod, with tons of stuff to do to make money around Liberty City, which is a huge help for the asset missions that actually become available halfway throughout the story, which we'll get into later. But the plentiful side missions this mod has to offer are varied in terms of gameplay, and offer a lot of great rewards if you're willing to tough them out. From simple racing missions, which are way too easy, to joining a bomb defusal squad and, well, defusing a bunch of bombs around town, to new vehicle collections like from Vice City, which if you complete the entire list will grant you all of those vehicles being unlocked by the end of it, and you can pull them out freely whenever you need them. Or you can sign up to the Liberty City Survivor game show that was heavily mentioned on the radio in GTA 3 and this mod, and you get to experience the chaos within that show. Or even finding and eliminating terrorists all over major sections of Liberty City, and stopping a united threat against the town. There's even more outside of all of that as well that you can dive into, and most if not all of it counts towards your 100% progress. Meaning there is a shit ton of content to get lost in with this mod. And hell, this mod even comes with a handbook if you need help finding out what you have to get for 100% completion. And this remaster mod also came with some extra goodies like some hidden object location maps and even weapon locations and such. There's so much content here in this mod that I haven't even scratched the surface, which in my opinion is a huge achievement in and of itself. And one last positive footnote I want to leave for this mod, since we're talking about the good things around it still, is the introduction to additional mission objectives pretty early on in the story. These new side objectives throughout the story encourage you to play faster and smarter, which will net you an even better reward at the end of each mission that they're available in. Which honestly, you're gonna need as much money as you can get, especially in the first half of the game. So it's best to try to complete these objectives whenever they become available. Which to me was probably the biggest highlight to come out of the entire story of this mod. But we'll definitely get into that a bit later. For now, let's look into what was not quite as good throughout the mod. It's mission design. See, I'm not a game designer myself, but even I've played enough Grand Theft Auto to know bad mission design when I see it. And this mod has a range of missions that are incredibly tedious to get through, and certain design decisions throughout the mod that are pretty questionable. For example, at around a third of the game's story, we have to stop the cartel from blowing up the Staunton Bridge connecting to Portland again. So we take them all out thinking everything is fine, but as we're leaving, it turns out we never actually looked into that bomb that was mentioned. And, well, it goes off.
Holy crap!
Pretty much leaving the bridge into ruins. Now, you'd think at some point later in the story it would get rebuilt again, but no. This just leaves an extremely vital path for missions to be completely cut off for the rest of the game. This makes getting to Portland incredibly tedious, meaning you'll have to take the underground highway at the north of the islands just to get to Portland each time. And it made me loathe ever having to revisit that island, until I was like starting a mission from there. Another mission I'd like to point out is a follow mission that you end up doing for the Yardies at a later point in the game, which I believe is optional, but I still wanted to mention it, where instead of following somebody in a car like you might be used to from other GTA games from this era, we instead follow this guy on foot, which at first I thought was a nice change of pace, making stealth a bit more prominent while we're walking around town. Unfortunately though, there's no scarometer, meaning if we're in the guy's line of vision at all, we'll fail the mission. Which doesn't sound so bad, but this is GTA 3's engine we're talking about. So NPCs can spawn about 40 feet in front of you, meaning if you get too close or too far, there's a slight chance you can bump into an NPC and turn around in an instant, making us fail the mission right then and there if we aren't careful. And all by the end of it, he just ends up going into a building, meeting with somebody, and that's it.
And what was the point?
There are plenty of missions just like this that make no sense whatsoever. What was the point of that? Like with the final mission for the stadium business asset. It just has us driving around doing busy work for the business and then just ends. And then from that point, we have the business asset unlocked. Like, it makes absolutely no sense for some of these missions. And it just feels like busy work to pad out the overall runtime of the mod itself. And it really makes a lot of the missions feel half-baked, and you can smell that half-baked stink all over this mod with its mission design.
They're the same picture.
Another thing I noticed too on a lot of missions was that once you do the initial objective that the mission asks for, there's really nothing that happens afterwards. Like in some missions in GTA games, after you go complete an objective, there might be like a chase that happens right afterwards, but you never get that type of experience here inside of this mod. So once you go and complete that task, it's pretty much just driving back and forth half of the time, which means most of your time is going to be spent on the road without really anything going on. So get used to listening to the same radio stations over and over again, which I find the timing hilarious because of the amount of times I've heard Rock DJ by Robbie Williams playing recently with this mod, and then all of a sudden a Robbie Williams movie comes out. And the last thing I want to point out with missions is how generic the objectives can be. Get used to seeing the place for most of the mod, because you'll be going to the place quite often. What is the place, you might ask?
This place is where?
Well, it usually turns out to be the spot that we need to go to next for our objectives for most missions, but the mod author didn't think to put the location names for each of those places we need to go. So we just get go to the place every single time we have to go somewhere. Thankfully, the version I was using included a map function, so finding the place wasn't so hard to do, but still, having some direction would be nice instead of having to pull that thing up every single time. But now, let's dive into the real reason you probably came to the video in the first place. You want to know what this game is about, or you want to know what my thoughts on the story are going to be. And, well, that's about where we get into this last section. The following part has been voice acted by myself, for your own sake, because this mod has no voice acting.
Okay, Joey, it's your first deal.
Yeah, you know, I was waiting a long time for this moment. You're not coming, Tony?
Nah, this moment should belong only to you. The Colombians are waiting.
Alright then, I'm going.
Good luck, Joey. Yeah, just a few more steps.
Strange. There's nobody here. Why did Tony not want to go?
Everything's done.
Goodbye, Joey Leone. I am the boss of the Mafia. I am! Okay, now we can go back to the mansion.
Now, here's the thing. When it comes to total conversion mods like this, when you're creating your own story that takes place across an entire open world, I get it. It can be tough filling out that world with content that makes sense to the story beats themselves. And this is something Rockstar has mastered in their own game design over the years, allowing the story beats to take place across the entire map over the course of the entire game. But it wasn't always that way. In fact, back in GTA 3, their original approach to mission design was to create these fun and interesting missions for the game first, and then fit the story around those missions that they created. And it ended up working out for the most part, with the game still holding up over the years, and hell, it even still has its random difficulty spikes here and there. But with GTA Frosted Winter, it feels like they took a similar approach to mission design like with GTA 3 over the course of the story, at least for the most part. And to be quite honest, in my original few drafts of the script for this video, I was going to cover the entire story and have this video be pretty long for the most part, with a huge chunk of it covering the many faults and downright questionable decisions made within this game's story. However, instead, I'm just going to tell you up front, I did not care for Joey's redemption arc at all. But to be fair, pretty much any GTA game has to have some sort of story to guide you through and like make some sort of progress. So yeah, I guess it's here for the most part. To keep it brief though, there are going to be spoilers coming up here for some things that I do want to talk about. So if you don't want to be spoiled, skip to this time code if you don't want to hear what I'm about to say. Still here? Okay, good. Alright, why is it that Joey's story arc entirely depends on following orders from fucking Mickey of all people? Like Luigi's right-hand man, Mickey. Joey does make like one rash decision at the very beginning of the game on his own, but the rest of the story, we're taking orders from Mickey and a bunch of other people that he sets us up with until like the last quarter of the game. And on top of that, we don't even make a move towards Tony until the last quarter. Like, he's the one that we're going after in this game, but hey, we'll just leave it till the end of the game, I guess. To be fair though, Joey does pull off some pretty heroic shit throughout his escapades, like stopping a terrorist attack just off the coast of the city with the cartel planning to blow up an oil rig and poison the entire city's water system. Even though the mission's premise was batshit insane and was essentially ripped off from Batman Begins, it's still hilarious to see, and the wild mission variety throughout the game at least reminded me a bit of Saints Row 3, if anything. But again, Joey's grand plan to take back his seat as the Don is to essentially follow orders from Mickey, who tells him to slip his way into the Yakuza, Scooby-Doo style, and then later take over different businesses, including Luigi's, and then convince others to join his side based off of nothing other than family, I guess. And then hoping for the best at taking back the mansion and then killing Tony. And I mean, come on, did we really not think that Mickey and Luigi weren't gonna sell us out by the end? It was so damn predictable. Like, I saw these twists coming way at the beginning of the game. And again, many decisions made throughout the story and even missions that we do throughout the game make no sense in the grand scheme of things. And then this dude who just shows up out of nowhere, who's supposedly Tony's right-hand man.
Who the fuck is this guy?
And by the time I was getting burnt out, it was finally time to go after Tony, even though when we go after him, we go after him like 3 different times before we actually get to the final mission. Like, it's such a huge buildup for such a small payoff. Like, by the end of the game, there are a few boss fights that we encounter, but they're very rudimentary at best. And you could just barrel a ton of mags into their chest and, you know, prolong the fight a bit, since they have a lot of health when you shoot them there. Or you could just headshot them and you're good to go. Like, if there was some variety to these fights, or have different stages to the missions, like with San Andreas' final mission, having like 3 missions in one, that would have been cool. But having this insane buildup with like 3 different missions building up to finally killing Tony, and then just ending him off with a headshot, and the game saying the end, made me just burst into laughter.
Jesus Christ, great.
This is one of the most anticlimactic endings to a mod that I've seen yet. But I think one of my biggest gripes with the story is that about halfway through, it kind of opens up like how Vice City did, where you have to complete asset missions before moving on with the rest of the story. Now, my problem isn't with the asset missions. In fact, some of them were pretty fun, and those were some of my favorite things to do back in Vice City. However, in Frosted Winter, you're expected to complete all of the asset missions that are available in the game instead of just a few, which takes a lot of money saving in order to purchase them, and it almost requires you to complete a ton of side content in order to finish the story. Which is cool to give the side missions more breathing room, but giving players less assets to complete the story would have helped itself move forward a bit faster, and leave the rest of the content to be optional. But yeah, the story, I don't know, 4 out of 10, I guess. If we got to explore the inner turmoil of the Sindako family and witness like the power struggle between Joey and Tony a bit more, that would have been a more interesting story to see, in my opinion. But the fact that Joey just goes on a wild goose chase time and time again, and then goes after Tony, just to be betrayed by all of his homies, I don't know, man, it fell flat for me, to be honest. Like I said, some of the missions were pretty fun, but the story, nah, it was bad in my opinion. To be honest, I wouldn't recommend going into playing Frosted Winter solely for its story though. Unless you plan on having a chuckle here and there with how dodging the writing can be at times, or playing the entire thing just to unlock Salvatore's mansion as a safe house, which I think was the only shining light that came through the entire story for me, then I guess it's worth it with that. But yeah, this story was just, it wasn't good. And look, despite the roller coaster of an experience with the mission design and the overall story that gave me whiplash at like every fucking turn, I still honestly highly recommend checking out the mod in some capacity.
Sorry, what?
I know it's weird because I was just talking a lot of shit on the story and whatever, but either way you do it with the original version, Hamster's Remaster, or with Englishman's Remaster coming out in the future, Frosted Winter is a great mod to experience at least once. This mod just feels so ambitious overall. But in a lot of ways, its ambitions put a huge weight on the overall quality of the experience, which is where I get that opinion of the mod feeling pretty mid by the end of the day. Look, the frosty atmosphere and the vast amount of content that's available here with this mod really means that you won't fall short of things to do and experience back in Liberty City. And having that winter theme really makes it feel like a nice cozy winter game to play at the end of the year. But it's that damn mission design and the lackluster story that I would recommend playing this game and enjoying it for the atmosphere overall, and not caring too much about the story like I did going into it, or at least tried to. In all honesty though, if you feel like you want something new to check out for the holidays, I would recommend checking this one out with one of the links that I'll leave down below in the description for the different versions that are available. Because again, there is a lot of fun to be had with this mod. And thankfully, with English Ben looking to remaster the mod, there is hope for a revitalized experience on the horizon. English Ben's remaster was given blessing by the original dev, and it's an attempt to not only fix a lot of the issues that are in Frosted Winter, but also streamline a lot of the problems that I and many other, including Ben, have with the mission design, and even a few other things as well. I've got to play a bit of it on an early build just to see how things are, and let me tell you, a lot of stuff that I mentioned even in this video have been addressed with what I've played so far. So this project looks really promising for the future, and I'm rooting for Ben to really clean this game up in some capacity, because it really is something you should experience yourself at some point. And from my brief discussion with Ben, he actually has his own private GitHub that is complete with changes and logs for different fixes and stuff that he's going for in the mod, and even stuff that he's been recommended to take a look at as well. So it's not going to be some half-ass remaster, like he's really going all in with this mod. So keep this remaster project on your radar, because it'll become available when it's done. There's no exact release date or anything like that, but definitely subscribe over to English Ben and his channel if you want to stay up to date on a release of the mod. And hell, go check out his streams. The dude is a fantastic speedrunner. I've been watching him for a long time now, and if you haven't watched his speedruns, like, definitely go do it. But those are my thoughts on GTA Frosted Winter. What did you think of the mod? Let me know down in the comments below. I know there are quite a few of you looking out for this one, so I'd like to hear your opinion on the mod as well. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, or dislike if you didn't. Also, make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. And hell, maybe follow me on my other socials as well, like Blue Sky or Twitch, or my Discord if you want to keep up with our small little community. And one last thing, I really just want to say thank you for your patience with this video, by the way. Everyone's support this year and the amount of growth that this channel has made in 2024 is astounding, and I just can't wait to see how 2025 turns out. So thank you again to everyone who watches my stuff. Like, it truly means a lot to me. You have no idea. But that is it from me. I hope you all had a fantastic day, or at least tomorrow is even better. And I will see you all next time. Blado out.